Right. So I'm making a video now about what I've been doing for the last 10 years, basically, because again, I sort of making videos in response to bulk questions, if you know what I mean. And a very common one that I've been getting is, what have I been doing, since the music split up? Why aren't I involved in music? Lots of questions like that, really. And I guess it's totally natural. It's a totally natural question for anyone to think to ask, isn't it? Really. Um, so I thought I'd try and make a video to put it into some kind of context for you, I guess, which might be quite difficult to do, but I'll try my best anyway. So let's say, for argument's sake, well, I mean, our last gig, the music's last gig was 2011, wasn't it? Sort of July, was it, or something? 2011. It's difficult to talk about that, really. Let's. All right. So anyway, so later on towards the end of the band, around when I was 27, I think, I was diagnosed with ADHD, primarily bipolar as well. So that was a very strange period for me, obviously. Although in lots of ways it was like a rebirth, I guess, because I'd had these issues that I've been dealing with sort of my whole life, ever since I can remember. So to finally, and very quickly as well, I mean, I might get into that in a different video, but my diagnosis, as it were, wasn't a long process. It was a very quick process in reality. Which bit should I talk about here? Well, okay, so I'm not going to make this all about that, but I can't make a video about what I've been doing since the band split up without talking about that, basically. Although, it plays a massive role, as I'm sure you can imagine it would. So anyway, let's just put the band aside a second, if that's all right with everyone. I don't like talking about myself, really, because I don't even like the sound of my own voice. Do you know what I mean? Let alone looking at myself on camera. But I think that you guys have sort of given me the confidence to think it's okay to tell you, if you know what I mean. Because I tell you what, the last thing I am, and the last thing I ever want to be labelled as, is an attention seeker. Because if I was an attention seeker, don't you think I'd have been trying to milk this years ago? So I'm not saying anyone's calling me that. But I have to preface anything I say about myself with that, because I'm really aware of, in this day and age, so many people, all they want to do is talk about themselves, which obviously, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm not that guy. I'm not doing anything for any other reason than you guys, give me the confidence to talk about these things and to tell you about these things, which I've got no problem doing, other than appearing like I'm doing it for any other reason than to answer your questions. So, with that said, so my diagnosis. So I won't get in. I'll make another video about life before, if people are interested. But in terms of so I went in to see my GP because I didn't feel right, and I hadn't felt right for a long time. It effectively came to a head. Now, obviously, being in the band and everything, and again, the management made sure that we had, private medical care, basically, so that, in situations like this, especially with mental health, it's difficult. Well, I won't get into that, but anyway, that meant that I could just go and get a quick referral, and then it was either the same day, it might have even been the next day, but it wasn't any longer than that. I had a private consultation and was diagnosed very, very quickly after, quite a brief conversation, really. Although I did keep going back, to make sure that everything was okay with medications and things like that. And again, I might make a separate video about, because I've got a lot to say about ADHD and how it affects me. But again, I can't do that while ever I feel like, like wrong talking about myself. Do you know what I mean? I have a big problem with that, which is why, I made those history videos sort of naturally, and then it's kind of grown into something in my mind, where that, I don't know, I'm suddenly hyper aware that it looks, I don't know, I just think it looks, it kind of looks egotistical to me, but you have to understand, I'm celebrating this with you lot. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, well, I can't say it any simpler than that, really. I'm celebrating all this with you lot, and I feel lucky to be able to do that. And I don't say that from any elevated perch, other than what you guys do for me, which is amazing. Do you know what I mean? Because it really, having low confidence, it really builds my confidence up, really. And people who know me might say, you know, confidence, but we're complicated things, aren't we, as humans? And I'm particularly complicated as humans go. So anyway, try and grab hold of any point I can here. So yeah, right, okay, so after I was diagnosed and put on medication, which is actually methylphenidate. Now, again, I've had a lot of questions about this particular issue, so I kind of feel like I could make videos about that as well and talk about that to a great extent, if people feel like it would help them, because that's one thing I'm always desperate to do. And it doesn't matter what I'm involved in or interested in. If there's people who are just experiencing that for the first time, I get a lot out of trying to help them, really. Now, right, okay, so this is all over the place, but that's all right. So yeah, getting diagnosed, getting on medication. Right, so the medication. It's going to be a separate video. Never mind. So, all right, let's put it in simple terms. The medication effectively allowed. Well, let's go really simple terms. If medication effectively allowed my brain to work properly, or not properly, but it makes you feel better about the fact that it doesn't. What it does technically is it allows you to concentrate, basically. That's what it does technically. It allows you to concentrate, but what that extends into is concentrating on good, as simple as that. And especially if you have hyperfocus will often demand that you focus on the bad. So to be able to stimulate the parts of the brain that release reward chemicals, etc., that enables you to, well, effectively feel good about being you. Which, without, again, wanting to make this too emotional or too about me, has been something that I struggled with, feeling good about being me. Now again, the last thing I feel stood here is alone, in that sense, in terms of struggling being me. I mean, especially now, how many people are struggling being them? Too many, I'm sure, too many. I've lost my train of thought, and you were a particularly good one. Sorry. It's alright, I'm not stopping it though, I'm going to keep going. I'm just confused more than anything else. I've got too many thoughts going about this subject, which is why I struggle to make videos about it. Alright, so yeah, the pills allowed me to feel good about myself. They allowed me to go about my day without relying entirely on the coping mechanisms that I built for myself as long as I can remember. And my coping mechanism has always been effectively giving into hyperfocus. Even when I was a little boy, just being obsessed with, I don't know, a computer game, anything, a pen, it doesn't matter. And I'm not necessarily in control. Well, I'm not, it's not necessarily about it. I'm along for the ride as much as anyone around me, which has always been the most frustrating thing dealing with my behaviour, is that well, I can't help it, do you know what I mean? And millions and millions and millions of people will be in the exact same situation as me, but maybe don't feel confident enough to speak about, because that's one thing I don't suffer with, is confidence about speaking about stuff like this. I have no problem. You know, if someone gives me the impression that they want to hear about it, I'd never force information on. Well, I don't talk about this stuff other than to my close friends who help me deal with things, and I help them deal with things equally. But it's not like I go around broadcasting this stuff. Do you know what I mean? The post I did about the song in particular, it felt necessary to give that song context. And to be honest, I think a lot of my demos that I put out there, I've probably done them an injustice not giving them a little write-up as well, because each one of my demos I put out, I don't care what anyone thinks about the quality of it. In terms of me representing it to someone, they all mean an equal amount. Yes, some are more polished than others. Obviously, I began to get better at what I was doing, but ultimately every one of those ideas means something, and the lyrics that I wrote mean something. So yeah, I kind of felt like I did some of my demos an injustice by not telling you what they're about, although the majority of them are along the same theme as Going to Ground, do you know what I mean? Dealing with being me, I suppose, which again it just feels like such an egotistical, arrogant thing to do. Sorry, I just got paranoid this wasn't actually recording nowadays. Oh, my phone again, let's see. Right, okay, yeah. So, I suppose the most frustrating thing about that for me was my life sort of dealing with my problems started at the end of the band. You see what I'm saying? So those two didn't. Well, they crossed over a bit. I mean, the last performances I was, whatever. But they didn't cross over too much creatively as well, which I don't resent, obviously, but I feel my productivity and everything would have been very different. But anyway, I'm not dwelling on what if, I'm talking about what happened. So let's get back to that. So effectively, right, so the band ended, and I'm not going into that now. So the band ended. So I effectively went and sat down and went, okay, well, what am I going to do? And then, so obviously, without wanting to talk too much about that, it was tough. Obviously, it was tough. It's difficult to just say that without giving that context, because it does need it. It does need it. But I thought, okay, all right. Well, being in the music, everyone had creative input. I saw it as a chance to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've always been a big driver in this band, and I don't think any of the three lads would ever sit there and say that I wasn't. And I'm not trying to say that to be arrogant, because I'm not arrogant. But I was a big driver in this band, and obviously, and I'm sure it was for the rest of the lads anyway, but it was my life, do you know what I mean? Through and through. So I had to sort of think, what we're going to do. So I wanted to do it for myself, so I made those songs. And the medication I were on helped me think clearly enough, but it also gave me the confidence to do it. It's not only about thinking and focusing, it's about being able to hold on to the thought that you actually might be able to succeed in that. That's what methylphenidate does, or there are other medications for ADHD, none of which I've taken because that one just worked perfectly for me first time. So I did those songs, and I thought, right, well, I need a singer, because I'm not really confident enough in my own voice. I'm confident enough I could write it, but I'm not confident enough in getting up there and performing it, singing it. I always wanted someone else to do that. So again, without getting on to too much of not a negative train, but anyway. I woke up one day and thought, I don't want to do it anymore. Because I'm not being funny, but listening to those songs, my demos, and the lyrical content, and what I'm effectively doing to myself to get there, it's not a fun process. I didn't find it fun. Now, don't get me wrong, making the music, because that's how I write. This is going all over the place, this video. That's how that's how I write, is I create a soundscape first. So all my demos you've heard, every one of those is music first. I'll get some sort of drum beat down from a drum machine or whatever, chop it up, put it so it's decent, so I can play over it. Then I usually come up with a bass line and then I'll just start throwing stuff at it. I love doing that. I live for that, and that's what I'm going to start doing again. But anyway, so yeah, that's how I used to write. And then once I've got the soundscape, I'll sit there and just get lost in it and let melodies come to me. And when the decent ones come, I record them. And all the while, I'll be forming lyrics to get those melodies, because lyrics often for me, syllables and all sorts of rhythmic things that play a part in lyrics. But anyway, I keep losing my thread. How long is this? 16 minutes. Okay, so it's going to be longer than that. Right. So those songs. Right. So I woke up one day and thought, right, that's tough. It's really hard. I need some space from it. I think that's what I felt. I'm not going to get. I didn't really not entirely voluntarily take space from it, although it didn't feel like I did. Maybe I did. It didn't feel like that though. But again, that's another video. So I thought I need some space from it. So, right. So what did I do? I'll tell you what I did. For 4 years. 4 years, 5 years? I played Call of Duty. What else are you going to do? I played Call of Duty for 4 years. Maybe more. And I did that with my next door neighbour, who's actually through that wall now, Mark Inman. Very good friend of mine, Mark and Claire. Well, yeah, Mark, probably can't say that, but Mark used to, me and Mark could just play online Call of Duty all the time. And I loved it. Do you know what I mean? I loved it. It wasn't a replacement for anything. Don't get me wrong, not even close. But it wasn't about a replacement at that point. It was about surviving. It was about finding enough joy in each day to So yeah, that were a good laugh. That I love that, and I tell you what as well, it enabled me to get a lot of my aggression out. Do you know what I mean? Because I tell you what, anything I do, I take deadly seriously. I don't care if it's a computer game. I don't care if it's playing games with my best friends, little girls. Whatever it is, I take deadly seriously. So I just used to love running around and being really good at that. Because I tell you another thing about me. Again, not wanting to talk about me, but my reactions and stuff like that, especially with computer games, and again, I don't know if it's necessarily helped with the medication, sure it is, but fast, do you know what I mean? So computer games and stuff like that, it's almost like it's in slow motion to me a lot of the time. So I got off of that, that's what I did for 4 years, and all that time, obviously, difficult to know what to talk about and what not to talk about in terms of revealing too much about myself that maybe I'm not quite comfortable doing yet, but at the same time stepping on the toes of other videos that I'm wanting to make. But I think that ship might have sailed to some degree. So anyway, yeah, having a laugh on Call of Duty with me, but my world shrank. Before that, my world was pretty big. So yeah, my world shrank rapidly at that point, which, it's difficult because if I wasn't in this band, would my world have ever expanded? How I deal with life now, probably not. Do you know what I mean? So but either way, it was, my world was big, so to speak. And then it got much smaller, and it's alright because I knew every inch of it. Do you know what I mean? So no plane flights to worry about, because that's the other thing, right? So after the music, I thought, well, what am I going to do as a career? Do you know what I mean? Sort of financially. We were all still very young, and it was a case of, well, you're young enough to go out and do something else, and I never known how to do anything else other than two things. One, be me, and two, play guitar and make music. I feel I was born to do it. Just because you feel you were born to do it, though, doesn't give you a God-given right to do it. But anyway, I had a huge quandary of what am I going to do now. Again, because we talked so relentlessly and we'd had such fantastic management who'd looked out for us, we were able to come out of the band with enough to survive on for a bit. Don't get me wrong. Just enough to survive on for a bit. And it was really difficult for me because all I could think of was, well, I need to be doing something. And of course, especially with my character and personality and problems or whatever, but the more I think I need to be doing something, and I'm sure this is the same for so many people, the more I feel I should be doing something, the less I will probably be likely to do that thing. Do you know what I mean? So I was becoming paralysed with a fear of, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And even though I came out of it straight away with that adrenaline confidence of I can do this, and I did feel like I could do it, and I wrote them songs, and I thought these are good enough to. I just need a singer, but that didn't materialise for various reasons. Although I did effectively down tools because I couldn't do it anymore. Well, I could. Oh, I don't know. 10 years ago now, two hugely different places for me. As again, I'm sure they are for the majority of people. Right, so I did that for 4 years. Then I got into a few little other, hobbies that kept me busy day to day. And then again, I'm not going to get into this too much, but a very good friend of mine, well, now I didn't know him at the time, Organizer's brother, David McMaster, runs his own gardening business, and he wanted to know if I wanted to help him. So, to cut a 6-year long story short now, I'll talk about that because I loved it. But yeah, so so the 4 years I did absolutely nothing apart from just try and learn to be comfortable with being me, which was quite important, although it didn't further my career or anything. Not that I know what one of those is, or I think I even want one, or could handle one. I don't know if I could. But right, so working gardening with my mate Dave, that taught me a hell of a lot, because obviously I came out of school at 16 and started doing this. So working with Dave was the first time that I'd ever had, a real job where, where I wasn't adding nothing from the music, even though he knows who I was, but Dave's not particularly a big fan of band or like that. He's not even really that into music. We can talk about Dave another time, but I owe him a lot for allowing me to be me. Right, the point of this video then. Right, okay, so how can I address this? Alright, so let's just take it from the listening party. So then that happens. After 11 years. This is so hard to make this video because everything needs context. But yeah, the listening party happened. So I was a bit like, right, my feelings towards this band, Oh God. Let's just say it's not been easy for me to think about it. God's sake. It really is a state, this house, you know. It's alright though, I'll get on top of it. But yeah, it really is a mess, this house. I feel a bit exposed now. I don't want to stop it though, so let's just... Right, okay. I need a point to grab hold of. Look, again, I struggle making these videos because I don't want to look like... Well, I'm not saying it again. Right, so... Let's see if I can get through this. So I've forgotten everything. Everything. By choice, by necessity, I've forgotten everything. It's gonna be impossible, you know. Making a lot of these videos is gonna be impossible. You know, 5-6 minutes of this is gonna be me saying nothing. See if I can make the point, for God's sake. Right, the point of this video is that people are surprised that I'm communicating with them. Don't be. That's got to be the end of this. Just don't be surprised, do you know what I mean?